Good morning and welcome to Wednesday. We get the opportunity to continue on making a connection, responding to a faith challenge as we connect to the story not only of Zechariah and Elizabeth in the first chapter of the book of Luke, but we roll on into the significant story of Mary and Joseph, especially focusing upon Mary, and we're going to see some interesting parallels between the angel going to Mary, the angel going to Zechariah, and watching how they respond. And if you have a tendency to put people on the top shelf, especially a high priest or somebody who functions in the highest form of the priesthood, short of the chief high priest, and you consider Mary to be small potatoes, this is the great equalizer as we continue to move forward into the second of the birth stories that we find in the book of Luke, chapter 1. Luke chapter 1, verses 30 and 31. We're going to cover this quickly today, or not. I don't know if I want to say we can do it quickly. But it's only 2 verses. How long can it take? Well, anybody that knows me knows that it can take longer as we discover things along the way. It's kind of like being a tour guide and just picking up on things along the way. But the angel said to her, remember that she was wondering what kind of greeting this would be. You who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. What kind of setup is this? There seems to be some suspicions raised in the heart of Mary, and the angel responds to that and says, do not be afraid, Mary. Have you noticed that so many times when an answer comes from heaven, when angels show up, there is the fearful idea of the sudden appearance of an angel in the holy place that kind of freaks Zechariah out. And he's told not to be afraid. But it's not clear that at this point in time, Mary knows this is an angel and exactly which angel it is. As far as she knows, it could be simply a human being because angels appear so often in human form. And so here she is, and hearing this message and wondering what kind of message it is. Certainly in retrospect, they say hindsight is 20/20. She can look back and recount to Luke as he's researching all of this and basically say, well, this angel, did you know at the time it was an angel? Well, no, I didn't know it was an angel at the time, but later I figured it out, or by the end of our conversation, I knew I was not having a conversation with a human being, that it was much like Abraham and others had been interacted with. That all that technical information is just not present. We simply have reported to us that the angel said to her, the messenger from God said to her, do not be afraid, Mary. And I tend to believe that when a messenger from God who has been in his glory speaks peace to someone, they experience peace. He's not asking Mary to have peace which comes from herself. I believe that he is imparting a measure of grace to her by speaking peace to her, that she then experiences that peace at the same time. Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You are the right person at the right time, in the right tribe, in the grand scheme of things, and you have been prepared. You have been living an appropriate life. And so now we find an intersection here. You have found favor with God. It's not because you're superhuman. It's not because you yourself were born of amazing and unusual circumstances, but simply because now is the time, this is the place, this is the tribe, and it's time to bring forth the promise that I promised in Genesis chapter 3, verse number 15. The serpent will bruise his heel, but he, the seed of the woman, will crush his head. It has now come to this. It's taken thousands of years, but now everything has come together and it's the fullness of time. The book of Galatians says, and when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born under the law. So here's the messenger from heaven, the messenger from God. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son. So first of all, the happy news that you will conceive, because there were several Hebrew women, significant Hebrew women, who knew the frustration of not being able to conceive, that you will give birth to a son. So you will give birth, you will come to actual birth. Many had suffered miscarriages. They knew what miscarriages were, and they knew what it was to die giving birth. In fact, one of the famous accounts is Rachel, who gave birth to Benjamin in Bethlehem, or at the edge of Bethlehem Ephrath, and she passed away from the process. We have one of the descendants, the daughter-in-law of Eli, the high priest at Shiloh, and she gives birth when they hear the news that the ark of the Lord has been captured, and she gives birth and dies in the process of childbirth. So to first of all conceive, this is great news. To give birth, to go all the way through the 9 months gestation, 40 weeks, and actually give birth, that's awesome. Or actually it was 38 weeks. And then you're going to give birth to a son. Now we're adding detail. And how many times have people been told, well, darling, you're pregnant with a girl. Everybody that carries a baby like that, that's a girl. And then they find out later, especially before three-dimensional sonograms and everything else, that no, in fact, we painted the nursery pink in vain. That's actually a powder blue boy. So you're going to give birth to a son, and then let me tell you what you're going to name him. You're going to name him Jesus. Well, the right of naming the child relies upon the father. And so this is a curiosity, because this actually challenges tradition. Tradition says that the father reserves the right to name the child. We could have seen that earlier if we would have gone on further with the story of Zechariah. We would have found that he said his name shall be John. Why? He had to say it because nobody else in his family had been named that. And as the father, he reserves the right of naming. And so, incidentally, if the angel is telling her what the name of the son is, he's conveying a message. He's representing someone and giving them the information. That should be a clue to some other things that we need to cover. So do not be afraid. You have found favor with God. You're going to conceive, give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. The angel is giving her precise information, and all of these are clues as to what's going on. Now, in our life, how does that apply to me and you? How does that apply to me and you? When we have been praying, seeking the Lord, preparing ourselves, orienting ourselves towards the things of the Lord, when the answer finally comes, when our hope is about to be met, we tend to become suspicious and maybe even have a hard time buying into it. It's the last great challenge to our faith, because that which we have hoped for and that which we have believed is now about to become tangible and real, and we're not quite sure what to do about that. I think this is a chief reason why a lot of people give up right on the very edge of the answer, because they're just not quite sure how to deal with what they've expected and then how it really is when it shows up. And that great conflict sometimes will have us quitting at the very last second before we walk into the answer. So, as we've shared that today, be thinking about that. Where am I preparing myself? Where am I aligning myself with the Word of God? And now that I'm coming into some answers and God is about to release some things into my life by His grace, do I feel myself kind of turning away at the very last moment. Mary can feel that. And it's important that we understand that we feel that and just hang in there. Don't turn. Stay in there, because the message is about to get even better. And with that, I want to say the Lord bless you and keep you, cause His face to shine upon you. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.